welcome to this webcast dedicated to customer experience management topic. I'm Sandra, your host today, and I'm so glad to have with me Guneet Singh. So hi, Guneet.
Hi, Sandra. How are you?
And let me introduce a little bit to the audience. Guneet has a very impressive experience leading customer experience in well-known tech companies such as DocuSign and ADP and now AppFolio. He's also an active member of international customer experience associations. And I think, Guneet, you could be also presented, as you said once, as a person who strongly believes into the hard work and that hard work can't be substituted even in today's world.
That's right.
So to start with, so could you share a little bit about your professional background, your current role and company you work for, and what challenges you are facing nowadays?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandra, for having me and giving this opportunity to share my views and learnings, with you and the audience out there. So, hi, I'm Guneet. I'll just characterize myself as a very passionate leader with being very fortunate to get international experience delivering top line impact while connecting and growing people with fundamental belief that every customer, every employee, and every interaction matters. In the past, I'll say 25 years or so, I've built and led several functions that never existed, but were essential for the scale, such as, customer experience, research operations, transformation, and companies, ranging from tech to human capital to consumer electronics at the same time, also wireless providers, such as companies in entertainment and retail industries over these years, along with improving the experience ratings and the profitability, because end of the day, everybody is running it for a profit. Yes, I haven't had a fortune yet to work for a non-profit, but when you work for a profit, for-profit companies, definitely that is the central line in that. And as an ex-DocuSign XG, I'm very proud to lead the CX practice currently in AppFolio. AppFolio is a property management software company. Today, I'm just talking on my own behalf, not representing AppFolio, and just talking to Sandra. Sandra and I have been kind of, quite good friends, over the last several years, through CX community. My main role in AppFolio is around how do we build and drive sustainable experiences for our consumers and businesses while delivering, value realization for our customers, that they're coming to AppFolio for a certain reason. And how do we increase the value, for them using the software itself? Top three things I'm very proud about my past from a skill as well as, my experience standpoint is that I have led huge increase in Net Promoter Score for a very hyper-growing company in the past. Also help increase the addressable market for that company by going and understanding, what are the upstreams and the downstream opportunities, that we can tackle in. And also at the same time, very instrumental in building and delivering bottom line impact, from cost to serve while expanding the business 2 times in my previous company. So, and we can definitely go into specific examples as we kind of, go through the conversation on that. So that's a little bit about myself, my role, and what I'm doing. The biggest CX challenge, I think, Sandra asked, what are the key CX challenge? The CX challenge, which is universal in nature, is people don't fundamentally understand what CX is. Everybody knows what CX is, but they don't understand from their day-to-day functioning standpoint, from their day-to-day role perspective, because CX is not one function job or one person job, it's everybody's job. And when it's everybody's jobs, it's nobody's job. So then when you bring somebody specialist, in a CX role, people think, yeah, what are you here to do? What are you going to do? We already know customers. We already talk to customers. We already know how to do surveys. And we already know how to do journeys. We know already how to improve our processes. So what are you going to do? So CX, the constant challenge is you have to sell the value of, the customer experience. You need to kind of have an owner to drive that customer viewpoint, customer first focus in the company. So that's the biggest challenge, I'll say.
So thanks, Guneet. So it's a very fascinated path you had in your career. So before going deep into the customer experience management area, and I know you can talk broad and deep around every aspect in customer experience probably. But let's start with the fundamentals first. So how do you define customer experience? What are those secret ingredients in your view? What makes customer experience exceptional experience, great experience for customers?
Great question, and it's a very kind of rudimentary in nature, and it's the question I really like. Thanks to all the CX professionals, including Sandra and other professionals across the world now, people across industries are getting to the terms what exactly is customer experience. But from my perspective, it boils down to three things, which Sandra and I have talked in the past about. It boils down to emotion, effort, and success. It's a mix between quantitative and qualitative inputs. It's about sum of all the experiences, that a customer is having, from your product, from your services, from your service professionals, every single interaction they are having with your product, with your service is kind of, factor going into the customer experience. But these three things, which I mentioned about effort, success, and emotions, are the key components of what is customer experience or what makes a good customer experience. Now, let's talk about emotion for a second here. Emotion is all about, the feeling. From different interactions that customers are having with the product or the people. You can look at the examples in your region, in your country, or brands which are universal in nature. From Starbucks to Amazon to airlines. I know airlines, nobody loves airlines, but still, or Ritz-Carlton, or if you look at what is the common thread between these brands, universal brands, which are really admired. And when you look at the emotional aspect, they understand, how to connect with every single customer on their emotional need, because that brand is making an emotional impact. Hence, it resonates more with the customers that they're willing to stand for that particular brand. Now, I'll take one example. I'm not going to take a name of a specific brand, but I'll keep it generic. I love doing internet-based shopping. And when I go and try to kind of find for stuff, obviously I'm going to use the search engine provider to kind of search for a particular need. For example, like day before yesterday, I gave phone to my middle school girl. She's going to go to middle school, so I bought her a phone, and I was looking for a cell phone cover, case. Mm-hmm. So I went typical, went on search engine, found the good cover, and this service provider knows my history. This particular brand knows my history of my previous shopping patterns, my kind of, taste and everything else. And it provided me with the case options, which were more geared toward, man, because it was not necessarily more geared towards, female, because I wanted to give something to my daughter, and but it gave me options of, all the cases which were more geared toward the man. Now, immediately when I started kind of, typing in, that case covers for a female, especially a teenager between the such and such age, suddenly the system recognized that there was a bad search. So they started kind of, flashing the message on the screen itself. Oops, seems like, you are buying this for somebody else. So that's the emotional connection that, they're able to understand and interpret, that what we're doing. Now, again, it's very trivial, it's very simple, but again, those are the kind of, details which are very complex to deliver, on the surface. It may sound very simple to us, as a consumer, but to make that happen, there's a lot of, thought process, a lot of, orchestration of the journeys that customers take, the companies have to invest in. So that's kind of, the emotional aspect of it. Then another example you can talk about emotions is when you go to, Ritz-Carlton, right? When you go to Ritz-Carlton, they're high standard. There is a high sense of emotion aspect, that everybody's going. You're going to Ritz-Carlton, you expect flawless service. So, and they know that. From the minute you check in, the minute you check out, they have predicted every single need. They already know you may ask for everything, and they know how to handle it. Or they know how, even if they're not able to service you, they know how to kind of, give you that answer, which is more rational in nature. So they understand the emotional needs, that customers have. coming into a brand. So that's kind of, the emotional piece of it. Now, the second key component is success. Now, to understand success, we need to accept one fact that any customer or user engage with a product or a service or a brand if they have a goal or a problem in mind to solve for. Because they will engage with the software or with the physical product or with any services if they're stuck on a certain issue or a certain problem they're trying to solve for. So success is anchored around them accomplishing that goal. So an experience or a customer experience is incomplete if the goal is not achieved by the customer. So you can deliver a wonderful experience, but if you have not made that customer successful in accomplishing the task or accomplishing that goal, then it is futile. And then the last piece is the effort, which I know everybody's very familiar with. It's purely the time and the resource that we are asking customers to spend on the task or on the usage of that particular product or to interact with us, the time it takes for us to interact. Yes, we all are very familiar with the examples of the past when we used to wait for minutes and minutes over the phone, and those are things of the past, but they are also coming back again after the COVID because of supply and demand. Especially if you miss a flight, or if your flight gets canceled, good luck nowadays because there's so much shortage of airline pilots and everything else. And then you hate waiting on the phone. So it's the amount of effort that you're putting in using that particular service. And that is a key component of, customer experience. So key lesson is any effort to deliver a world-class experience is futile if it is not anchoring around these three elements: success, emotion, and effort.
So it's brilliant how you structure it into those three clear pillars. And in my personal opinion, I think that these first two, effort and success, is what many companies already understood, and they try to leverage it in creating better experiences. And this emotional aspect is what I believe it's still underestimated, underutilized. And thanks for bringing all those great examples how companies could leverage it in the experience. So coming back to your vast collective experience in customer experience management, so what would you name as your key learnings so that you gone through all those years, so that are very precious to you and that you keep in mind each time when you step in such role as customer experience manager in your company?
Yeah, absolutely. Another great question, Sandra. I'll keep it simple. I have, learned, from my mentors. I've been very fortunate to have received the opportunity to get mentorship, from industry leaders, in the CX profession, outside of CX profession, across, both sides of the world. I have one mentor who is very popular in the European countries, and then I have a mentor who is very popular in overall North America and rest of the world as well. What I learned from both of them was very unique, that have your learnings, at least have a core set of learnings, that, try to transcribe them, try to kind of, capture them, and don't rush into changing them as you go from a role to role or from a company to company or, from an experience to another experience. Try to understand, try to kind of, build the relationship around the new learnings and the existing learnings you have and see if there is any difference. So that kind of, helped me kind of, anchor around. There are 6 things, that I've observed over the last 20, 25 years. And then I feel like these are the 6 lessons, that I have learned. And again, it's not the end of the list, but again, I try to kind of summarize when I find some new learnings. I try to find, is it new? Is it embedded into these 6 lessons or not? And then I try to refresh them as I go. But the 6 are, and there's no specific order. And number 1 of them is around that every single customer matters. And the second piece, the second learning which I have related to that is that customers, want to be heard and they want to be understood and respected. And then the third one is around every interaction matters, irrespective of the customer size, revenue, and the journey they're taking with your product or your services. And number 4 is around you have to acknowledge the objections which customers, might actually present to you when they use your product, when they use your services, or when they use your company. And you have to present them solutions. So that's kind of number 4. And then number 5 is around speed and transparency should be there in resolving the customer issues. You might be living in a utopia world if you say customers, will not have problem. Customers will always have problem because, that's the nature of, the business itself. So you need to be more agile. You need to be more speedy and have transparent solutions. Even if you cannot solve that issue, you need to give them very transparent and clear answer, honest answer about like, yes, we can't do this, or this is not something, we can handle it, instead of giving them a round answer or a, circular answer there. And the last, which is, I'll say the most favorite of mine, is around, you have to always 24/7 look, how can you generate more value for your customers? If your customers are, if you are a SaaS company and they're subscribing you for a particular subscription, you have to constantly look, in addition to what I already declared that you're going to get for $10, $20, or 20 euros per month subscription, how can you increase the value they're getting out of your product? Which means how can you deliver more offerings, more understand, and that cannot just come by you saying, hey, we're going to lump and start offering them something which may not even they use. So you have to understand the customers, understand their needs, and try to increase the value from your product. Always. That I think are the 6 lessons, that I will say are very near and dear to me.
And it's very, very, very relevant insights you shared, so that we all should keep in mind. And staying on your point about customer understanding that you mentioned a few times, so could you share how do you build this customer understanding as a company? So, and just to give a little bit of flavor, I know that you're a big fan of using technology also in internal processes, also for real-time customer insights, customer understanding. So could you share a little bit about how you balance those listening activities between maybe traditional customer listening through surveys, frontline people, or focus groups, whatever you are doing, and this data-driven customer understanding?
Right. Absolutely. Happy to share that. I'll just say out of the gate, there is no right approach or wrong approach in kind of building customer understanding. What is most fundamental is you have to define what are you solving for, because that's the most of the time we forget. We start running into that race of collecting data, listening data, doing surveys, doing interviews and things like that. But then often we forget, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Do we really need to collect 20,000 rows of data for the problem? Or it's good enough to just talk to 6 customers and understand the problem they're having. Or let's understand the scope, the impact of this particular problem. If you have a problem, for example, if you are, let's say, a SaaS company into a technology, and you're trying to roll out a new feature or a new services, to the market. And the reason you want to roll out is because you've heard in your customer complaints or the cases, which your service team is handling, that, hey, I see a lot of customers getting stuck at this point. They're often calling us again or submitting email cases or chat that they're not able to complete this transaction. So you're seeing that indirect data that is coming in from the customer that they're getting stuck. Now you want to solve for that. You want to go and kind of understand what exactly is the customer issue before you start building out or release a new feature or new services. So you already have a data to start with, which is your indirect source of voice of customer through customer complaints. You take that, build up your hypothesis, build up your problem statement as a result of that, then roll up your sleeves and say, let me dig deeper. I already have 20,000 rows of data by customer cases and complaints. Let me go and talk to 5 or 6 customers around this hypothesis that I have built based on the data that I already have. That's, again, what you're doing is you already had a quant data. Now you're layering in the qualitative data on top of that. Great. After you got the data, then you can start prototyping and build up a solution, and then you again create more data by bringing another set of 5 or 6 or 20 users to test out that solution. So now what you're doing is you're trying to now build the usability data of that particular prototype that you're launching in. So now you have multiple sources of VOC. You have the VOC indirect data. Now you have interviews. Now you have the usage data for the customers coming in. And then you basically see the results, features are good or not, you tweak it, you roll out, and then you conduct the survey. You conduct the survey, you can choose different vehicles to conduct survey. You can do it, within your particular product, or you can send them through email or whichever, I'm not going to go into, that's a separate topic altogether, choosing the right vehicle, but you can do the survey, and that's again, your direct source of VOC data that you can combine in. Now, in the same time, as customers are using your new feature and the product, you have telemetry in place. You build the telemetry to track how much time they're spending, how many clicks are they doing? Are they coming and going through this, or they're just kind of clicking once and not even staying on that particular solution, which you're offering them. So you can kind of leverage that data as well. Then you bring all of that data together to build that solid customer understanding, because it goes back to what problem you're trying to solve, and it never ends. It's a cyclic nature. So you constantly gonna go back and try to kind of improve on that one. So just to bring it back to your question about how do you build customer understanding? I'll say to build customer understanding, you start with what are the problems you're trying to solve, and then what is the focus area you're trying to go in? Because oftentimes what happens, as a CX professional, there's so many opportunities. We get overwhelmed by saying, hey, everything seems broken. So should we just go and collect all the data here? I'll say go small. Pick one area, pick one problem, pick one, most common customer language, that is creating problems for the customers, and then go and solve for that before solving it for everything else.
It's a very wonderful perspective you brought, and very smart one. So another topic I wanted to tackle today, and where I think you are very brilliant in doing this, is linking customer experience with the business outcome and justifying return of investment into the customer experience. And you are doing a great job here, and what I told you already, so it's visible even from your LinkedIn profile, how you connect your achievements in CX area with the dollars you save or help businesses to thrive through experience. I know this is a very broad topic, but could you share some key principles how to link experience with the business outcome?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm not going to give theoretical, philosophical answers about you go and attach it to the top line and the bottom line, and then that solves the whole, issue. I'm going to go back to the basics. If you have, been a math student, you will know this very near and dearly, this equation, which I'm going to say. Y is a function of X. I think everybody who goes to the math school, they understand there are inputs and there are outputs, and there is a function. So output is a function of inputs. So when you think about the return on investment can be the impact, whether that impact is the dollars that you are getting as a result of improving experience. So that can be, you already have a customer. They already buying $10 or €10 worth of subscription from you every month. Now you've improved the experience. They've increased it to 11 or they've increased it to 12. So you're increasing the size of subscription with them. So that's one way of it. Second is also you're looking at, instead of just 10 customers using your service, you have improved the experience. Now you've attracted a new set of customers because you're solving for them. So you've increased the number of consumers using your product. That's the top line impact. And on the bottom line impact, things like it was an effort that was required. Again, going back to that fundamental effort, emotion, and success. So try to convert what does effort means in terms of a cost perspective. Not only your cost, but customer cost. Now let's take example of customer services. When customers are creating a support request or they're reaching out to you, there is a cost associated with the company that has to kind of take in to service that address. You have to have a person or a technology or a technical knowledge or the user interface or the help experience, built in to kind of service those customer needs. So there's a cost associated. So every single request that originates from customer carries a certain amount, so you have to translate what is that cost of one interaction or one particular service request that is coming into the company. And as you go and improve the experience, to eliminate the need of that service request or eliminate the need of that particular call or tackle that particular call reason or service reason or service request, then you can start linking directly to the return on investment. That yes, you have put in X amount of technological investments to improve that service call reason. And also you have eliminated the need of having a human service that. Or it's not only about eliminating the need of human. Maybe you reduce the time it takes for customers to hear back from us. So they had an urgent issue because they wanted to do something related to compliance and they need to submit a report to some other institution. Instead of waiting 24 hours, now you have reduced it to 5 minutes. So that means you have freed up 20 hours of their time. Now, what does that mean? So again, those are the kinds of inputs you need to factor in when you start thinking about the ROI. And it's very common because, you have to go double click, triple click before kind of, linking it back to NPS. Everybody jumps in to say, hey, yes, ROI is you improve the NPS by 10 points. But what does that mean? What does that mean with respect to, our customers buying more? To what extent are they buying more? And is the contract value increased in your company as a result of improving experience? Is the average size of the deal that is happening in your company has increased because you fixed the experience of buying, or you fixed the experience of contracting, or from a sales perspective, has that increased? Or if you fix the customer services, has the number of requests gone down? That means directly related to you need now less humans to focus on that. You can divert those humans toward the growth or towards the value for the customer rather than just, focus on the reactive service. So that's how I will say, think about Y as a function of X. What are the inputs that can actually go into the ROI? And one of the piece which is very crucial is, and it's often overlooked, most of our professionals, when we go into the field, we forget. We are trying to kind of deliver an experience for the customer, but we have to understand the business partners and their priorities. You have to talk to your general manager. You have to talk to your product owner to understand what are their business needs for the quarter, for the year, for the 3 years, and then try to align the return based on their needs.
Yeah. So I fully agree with you. I think this is a very important exercise we need to learn. So working in this role, so to speak not only the language of customer, but also to speak the language of finance, because this is, as you said, is a kind of door opener for collaboration with other managers. So to make them willing to contribute, to be accountable for experience enhancements, actually, yes. So the topic of return of investment from experience, I think, is very much also related with the measurement topic, customer experience measurement. So what are the set of core metrics or KPIs that you are using in your companies so to track how healthy is your customer experience?
Right. In my current company, there are plenty of measures, that we're using. And the reason is why, the end of the day, the metric is a metric. You can have 20 different kind of, metrics, measuring different kind of, parts of the journey. But I think you need to relate it back to what it is delivering, for what you're using that metric for. The most common metric, which not only in my company, but also previous other companies as well, you'll find it as people use NPS, people use customer satisfaction or customer effort score. And then, purely from a service experience standpoint, they use first time response, overall resolution rate, things like that. What I lay emphasis is, again, goes back to that Y as a function of X. There are multiple sets of metrics. There are metrics which are just you can monitor. For example, NPS is a metric that you cannot control because it's an output of various things that goes into the company. So in addition to measuring NPS, we have to understand what are the attributes that goes into NPS. Is NPS in my, but if you're measuring NPS, again, depends on how are you measuring NPS, because it's not only about the metric, but what actions are you taking after that particular score that is being given. And NPS you can measure at relationship level or at the transaction level as well. So if you're looking at the relationship, you need to kind of, build in those attributes. Is this a factor of salesperson was good? Is this a factor of service organization was good? Or is this a factor of, the marketing material was pretty good? Or they just feel good about all the, the value they're getting out of using the product itself as a result of the usage of the product. So you have to understand those input metrics. So you have to have NPS as an output metric, and then you have to have internal. How many webinars, how much time they're spending on using the product, how much is their interaction with our CSM, customer success organization, how many times they've actually reached out and asked for a support thing as well. So those are the internal metrics that you have to have in place. There's no secret sauce, that NPS you can control. The NPS you can only monitor because it's an output metric. You need to kind of control those input metrics, and you need to have that in there. Now, if you're looking at from a product standpoint, there are a lot of metrics, that you can have in place, from usage of the product, the time they spent on the product, the clicks they do, and things like that. What I've seen and I've done in the last couple of companies is, built up an index score. Index score is more like an aggregation of different metrics coming into a single number, so that we can give a single language or single score to all the functions in the company. But marketing knows when marketing looks at Guneet as a customer, they know Guneet is at 86 out of 100. So what does that mean for marketing? Do we need to do more of marketing effort, less of marketing effort? What does that mean for product? That Guneet is at 86. Does it mean Guneet is using less or high? Same goes for when Guneet is 86, what does customer services do? That means they already know Guneet is a promoter or not a detractor. So giving the organization a single score or a single index is helpful to kind of bring everybody together and have the playbooks attached to that particular index as well. So that's something is becoming very popular. But again, with all the metrics come a lot of noise in the market when companies seize opportunity to bring softwares and technology, and then you get lost into the index score, health score, adoption score, and things like that. So again, but where I'm going to bring us back home is try to understand what are you trying to measure, but also at the same time try to understand what goes into that metric is equally important and equally necessary for you to measure that as a KPI. So have both output metrics and input metrics in your processes.
That makes a lot of sense. So at the end of our conversation, I have one more personal, maybe a little bit question to you, Guneet. I even wanted to quote you once you said that don't assume your business will know the value of CX. You have to continuously sell, market, and execute on CX value. So, well, Guneet, so how do you keep yourself motivated for so many years in this discipline, in the role which is sort of inconvenient role, where we need to go and tell many inconvenient things to people about customer complaints and gaps and broken experiences, and sometimes being quite lonely in our positions and rolling this stone uphill all the time. So how do you charge your batteries? How you keep yourself passionate in this area?
I love that question, Sandra. Thank you. And it's universal in nature. It's always the struggle. I'm sure CX professionals will kind of echo with my sentiment there. It's a constant, not battle. It's a constant effort that you have to put in. And let me respond this, and if you allow me, let me share a story that will give answer to this questions of yours. It's not necessarily a CX example, but let me kind of I find it very connected to the question you're asking, and I find it very motivating for me every time I think about should I stop, should I not stop, should I keep going? I go back to the story and it reinvigorates, the passion in me. And honestly, I came up on this story when I was listening to, there's an app called Calm. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And there's a mindful meditation teacher on that app. And she was actually telling the story. And I heard this, I think, 2-3 years ago. And I just copy shamelessly because I love kind of, learning and copying things, which I really kind of find it useful in my business. So the story goes is like, there's an elderly man, old man, walking on a very sunny beach in somewhere in Middle California, Central California, and so somewhere Santa Barbara, things like that. Mm-hmm. And suddenly he spots thousands of starfish on the beach. The starfish on the beach. And as he's strolling, in a distance, he spots a very young woman in mid-20s standing there. And as he gets closer to that woman, he notices that she is picking one fish at a time and throwing it back to the ocean. And he walks very carefully so that he doesn't step on the starfish. And he goes close to her and say, "Hey, lady, what are you doing?" And she responds, "Yeah, I'm just throwing them back in the ocean." And he said, "Why are you doing this?" And she said, "If I don't do this, sun will kill them. There's so much heat, 36 degrees, 37 degrees, sun will kill them." And this old man, elderly man, looks very astonished with kind of, frizzled face, like, has she lost her? She doesn't understand. There are like thousands of fish. So he asked this question to her, how do you think you can make a difference? It's going to take more than 3-4 days for you to throw all the fish back into the sea. And even if you try to bring the whole town, it's still going to take a whole day. So humanly, it's not possible to put all of them back. So what's the difference your action will make? Woman looked at him, bent down, picked another one, and threw it back in the ocean. And she said, "It matters to that one, which I threw it in the ocean." So that is such a resonating story for me, is we often, get into the motion like, what difference am I making? If you think from a customer perspective, even if you're able to solve that one customer problem, one customer issue, make one customer happy, one interaction happy, you're still making a difference. So that's what I feel like. There's plenty of opportunity in day-to-day stuff that we are doing as a CX professional. So there's no shortage. So that's how I motivate myself. Like, it matters. It may not matter to me. It may not matter to the whole organization, but it matters to that one customer, which I'm making a difference. I'm making an impact. So that's something, it keeps me going.
Every customer matters. So this points back to what you told in the beginning. So Guneet, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, practices, and those nice stories. So it's really valuable. It's really appreciated. So, and I believe if people listening to this webcast would like to connect with you, so they can probably do this through your LinkedIn account. So thank you once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Please, happy to connect and reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and happy to kind of, give back and share my learnings as well and learn from your experiences.